So, what if a huge chunk of what we're told about economics is built on a shaky foundation? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea coming from the Conjecture Institute. It's the idea that the real engine of our economy isn't money or things, but something way more fundamental: human knowledge. You know the drill, right? You turn on the news and there's some economist trying to predict the future, telling us if the market's going up or if a recession's just around the corner. But what if that's not their job at all? What if all this time they've been trying to answer the wrong question? And this gets to the heart of the problem, what's been called physics envy. See, economics has always wanted to be like physics, with these nice, clean equations that can predict everything with certainty. But here's the thing, and it's a big one: people are not planets. You just can't write an equation that's going to predict the next big idea, the next viral video, or the next game-changing company. And if you can't predict ideas, you can't really predict the economy. Okay, so let's really unpack that. This whole physics envy thing. What actually goes wrong when you try to stuff the messy, beautiful, unpredictable world of human action into a neat little mathematical box? And this is where you can really see the split, right? On one side, you've got mainstream economics, always chasing predictions, using these complex equations, and basically treating us like cogs in a machine, like automata. But the view from the Conjecture Institute? It's totally different. The goal isn't to predict, it's to explain. It's not about equations, it's about logic. And it doesn't see us as robots, it sees us as what we are: creators. I mean, just think about it for a second. Could anyone, have predicted the invention of the smartphone, or the rise of social media, the mRNA vaccines? No way. By definition, new knowledge, new ideas, they have to be a surprise. And since our economy literally runs on these new ideas, any attempt to perfectly predict its future is, well, it's just doomed from the start. Okay, so if that old model is broken, if this physics envy is a dead end, what's the alternative? Well, it turns out there's this other way of looking at things, a school of thought that's been saying for a long time that we need to put human ideas right at the center of the picture. And this approach is called Austrian economics. And honestly, the core idea is super simple but really powerful. The economy, it's not some abstract machine floating out there, it's us. It's just a bunch of people, all of us, acting with purpose, making choices, and using what we individually know to try and make our lives better. And this one simple shift, it totally changes how you think about value. The old way of thinking was that something's value is based on how much labor went into making it. But this new idea says, no, that's not it at all. Value is subjective. A bottle of water is worthless if you're caught in a flood, but it's priceless if you're lost in the desert. The value isn't in the water itself. It's an idea, a conjecture in your head about what that water can do for you. All right, so if the economy is just millions of us with millions of different ideas bumping into each other, how on earth does anything get sorted out? How do we figure out which ideas are good and which are, well, not so good? How does the whole economy actually learn? This is where the market comes into play. You can think of it as this giant, non-stop error correction system. An entrepreneur has a hunch, right? A guess, a conjecture about something people might want. They test that idea in the market. They launch the product. And then the market sends back a very clear, very simple signal: profit or loss. And just like that, bad ideas get corrected or they get dropped. And it's really that simple. A profit is basically the market screaming, yes, that was a great idea. You figured something out. Do more of that. A loss, on the other hand, is just as clear. It's the market saying, nope, wrong guess, try something else. And what's so important here is that these aren't moral judgments. They're just pure, unfiltered feedback, the very thing a learning economy needs to thrive. Now we get to the part that, for me, is the most mind-bending. This whole way of thinking forces you to step back and ask a really basic question. What even is wealth? And the answer? It's probably not what you think. So picture this. There's a plot of land, and it's owned by a historian. Now, the historian is brilliant. They know everything about that land: the geology, the history, who lived there. But the land itself, it just sits there. It's just dirt and rock. Okay, now imagine a farmer owns that exact same plot of land. Suddenly, that dirt is producing crops, feeding people, creating real value. So what's the difference? The land is the same. The sun is the same. The only thing that changed was knowledge. The farmer has the know-how to transform that dirt into something useful. And this brings us to a completely different definition of wealth. It's not the stuff you have, it's the knowledge of what to do with that stuff. A pile of sand is just a pile of sand until someone has the knowledge to turn it into a silicon chip. So wealth isn't the physical object, it's the recipe, it's the know-how. Wealth is knowledge in action. So if we run with this idea that wealth is really just knowledge, what are the implications? I mean, how does that change how we should be thinking about the future, about building a smarter, more prosperous world? What you end up with is a totally different vision for our economy. It stops being about top-down management and starts being about creating the conditions for new ideas to bubble up from anywhere. It's about trusting the creative, unpredictable genius of individuals. And honestly, this is the most hopeful part. Because if wealth is knowledge and human knowledge can grow forever, well, then there's no built-in limit to how much better off we can all be. Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. If all progress, all prosperity really does come down to human knowledge, then what is the best way to create it, to share it, and to protect the freedom to use it? The answer to that? Well, that might just be the most important economic question of all.